Chamge chitab kana nyini tagat kora en Kas TV kongeten nguni ako lamba side sombogi ngalali ngale karanchi pa bandap tai ngale kebran jibo economy. Kuiga mono na basa 12 ngale kwede saini kemiten ketandenyon en petunoton nebo raini. Ye gemiten ko bota gana gini giljin kimi bota Eliud Owalo inendet ko UDF Deputy Secretary General en ngalekab policy ak strategy. Negi macho bitke usingo ngem betutab raini utinga ngalekab go presidents ntangana Ruto'S bottom up economic agenda. Igeri tosune yetawge serikali gunana ko une ngalekab teksin noton nebo uchumi nebo emet noton nebo Kenya. Kaina nyun ko Stanley Bore ni muchi ya gorate butungen Facebook en Kas FM nitan ko Kas TV so bit kora ko walungtane nyon en petunoto na baraina nago en WhatsApp anotan go 0747 1060 so bit kengala ngale kana jiter chinchena mege teksit noton nebo uchumi nebo emetab Kenya. Kibendi kiwale kutit kebe Kiingereza na Kiswahili so bitegere style and rani. Karibu sana Mr. Owalo. Good to have you in studio. Can you say hi to our viewers before to answer? Karibu sana. Good to have you.
Yeah, man.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, karibu sana.
Thank you. Good.
Good to have you. Long time.
Yes.
No scene, but nakona to behind the scenes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here eventually.
What have you been up to?
Well, we have been busy with the campaign. Now campaign is over. Politics is over. Now it's time to deliver on the promises that we made to the people by way of governance. Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So now that we have that is the point of penye kila mtu anaangalia saa hizi. It's about mambo ya economy.
Yes.
Maybe you can just take us through when we talk about the bottom up.
Yes.
What does it mean to a common mwananchi, a common man?
Okay.
Yule mtu anaamka asubuhi kama saa hizi, anapanga kazi zake za siku.
Yes.
What makes it different na zile zingine nye tumeona maybe for the past 10 years na what we are now targeting to?
Okay.
Karibu.
Thank you very much. First of all, may I start by congratulating Eliud Kipchoge for that remarkable performance in Berlin.
2:01:09.
Yes, by breaking his own world record.
Yeah,
I think he has made us proud as a country, and we need to build up from there by tapping into the great potential that we have within the sporting fraternity. Now, coming to the bottom-up economic model, historically since independence, we have deployed what is referred to as the trickle-down economic model. Okay. Now, what we mean by trickle-down is that the government at macro level uses its planning framework to decide what is good for the people by way of economic development and the whole country. Now, this has been happening since independence. But the problem we have had with this approach is that even in instances where we have economic growth, whether it is 5% or 7% as statistics has always postulated, that rise in the level of economic growth does not translate into a rise in the standards of living of the people. Okay? What happens is that we may have economic growth, but the national wealth is not equitably distributed among the Kenyan population, with the result that it ends up in the hands of a few people. Okay? So the level of income inequality has always grown. Yeah? The gap between those who have and those who don't have has increased tremendously over the past 3 decades or so. Yeah? So what we are saying now is that there is need for a change in that paradigm. Yeah? Today, as we speak, the wealth of this country is controlled by about 5% of the Kenyan population. Yeah? The top echelons. The middle class constitute another 10%. Okay? So 85% of Kenyans are actually hustlers. Okay? They are struggling to make a living. This is why we decided to change the paradigm to deploy what is now called bottom-up economic model, so that we start our planning framework from the bottom of the economic pyramid by engaging, by engaging in a participatory manner all the stakeholders, yeah, from the various value chains, the productive sectors of the Kenyan economy, by integrating their views and integrating their views into the planning framework. So how did we go about this? We went to each and every country within the Republic of Kenya, mapped out the various stakeholder segments based on the productive value chains in those counties, and got representatives of those stakeholder segments. We had participatory working sessions with them so that they tell us what, in their view, informed by comparative advantages of those regions, are the best economic opportunities which government needs to integrate in the economic planning framework with a view to increasing the standards of living of the people. This is why we are calling it bottom-up. Bottom-up in the sense that you seek the views of the people in a participatory manner, and then use that to inform your planning framework at the national level. So what have we done? We ended up with clear identification of the integral economic activities in each and every country, down up to the locational level, that the government needs to integrate in its planning framework at macro level. Now, we have gone a step further by committing through the president himself, who was then our presidential candidate of the Kenya Kwanza coalition, by way of service delivery, that we are going to deliver on the economic promises that we have made the people. So the candidate then, who is now His Excellency the President William Ruto, signed a charter, committing the Kenya Kwanza government to delivery of those services that the people require at the bottom of the economic pyramid. That is the change in paradigm that we are talking about. That instead of the government sitting up here at macro level and deciding what is good for the people, let us seek the views of the people themselves, because they know
what they want.
Not really what they want, what should be done for them based on the potentials of those regions. So that is what actually the government does for them. So the government then will be responsive to the needs and aspirations of the common mwananchi.
Okay.
As opposed to deciding what to do.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So, but what do you think? How long will it take? Maybe, perhaps, to actualize it? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 100 days, to start off?
In any planning framework, you can't deliver everything overnight. So you'll have the quick wins, those things which you can do immediately. Then you'll also have medium-term plans and, of course, the long-term plans. As we speak, the most urgent thing that we need to do, based on what we were told by the people, is to bring down the cost of living. Okay? Yeah. How do you bring down the cost of living? One, invest in agriculture as the most productive sector of the Kenyan economy. 70% of our population is engaged in the agricultural sector. So if you want to bring down the cost of living, put money into agriculture by way of inputs, so that you are able to cut down the cost of inputs, which then translates into a reduction in the cost of the end product. 54% of our disposable income today goes towards food. If you put in more money in agricultural inputs, starting with fertilizer, for example, you will be reducing the cost of production, with the end result that the price of the final commodity will go down. If we are working with a free market economy where the price is determined by the forces of demand and supply. Assuming demand is held constant and you are putting money into the supply side, then you are actually enhancing the level of supply. Demand being held constant, the price goes down. The price goes down. So that, in a nutshell, as a beginning, is how we want to bring down the cost of food. For a start, the president already has made a proclamation that fertilizer will be available to farmers at the price of 3,500 shillings per 50 kilogram bag, down from the hitherto 6,500 Kenya shillings per 50 kilogram bag. And already 1.4 million bags of fertilizer is already available at the NCPB stores at the disposal of, countrywide, at the disposal of the farmer. So that's the first thing that we need to do: bring down the cost of food. The next thing that we need to do is to stabilize our budgetary framework. We need to rationalize our budget. Yeah? How do we rationalize our budget? We need to cut down non-essential expenditures, yeah, that the government is involving. We have got a lot of wastage in national government: travels, workshops, benchmarking, teas, and so on and so forth. Those non-core activities need to be zeroed in on so that we reduce expenditure on non-core activities so that government can focus on what it is core business as opposed to non-core business. Once we rationalize the expenditure, we also then need to look at the revenue side. How do we enhance revenue so that we have got adequate resources to finance expenditure as opposed to borrowing, yeah, from the international market? What we are saying then is that we are going to bring more people into the income bracket, yeah, or the tax bracket by putting in money. We are setting up a 50 billion shilling hustler fund. We are rolling it out. And this hustler fund is going to go to the productive sectors of the economy, so that our young people who have hitherto not been having jobs, our mothers and sisters who have not been having adequate access to financing to enable them get involved in itinerary trade and commercial activities, can have access to credit at some reasonable level. If that happens, then we are going to bring a critical mass, millions of Kenyans, into gainful employment, either by trade or by way of creation of jobs.
Yes.
If you put money into agriculture, you are creating what? You are creating jobs, okay? The other thing that we want to do is to focus on the housing sector. We want to target building of 250,000 low-cost housing annually. Now, when you do that, you are creating a critical mass of jobs by way of provision of labor in that market.
Yeah.
You are also, by extension, creating market for products of the Juakali what? The Juakali sector.
Yeah.
So all this put together, agriculture and housing, will give us the impetus to create jobs, enhance the population of Kenyans who are involved in gainful employment, either directly through jobs or by way of trade, and then bring in more Kenyans into the what? Into the tax bracket. If you bring in more Kenyans in the tax bracket, holding all factors constant, what then it means is that we can drastically reduce our level of taxation and get the same level of revenue that the government needs.
Get the same amount.
The government needs to finance its development
without increasing the tax.
Without increasing the tax.
Absolutely.
If that revenue is managed prudently, if we put in place a sound governance framework, then we are also going to be able to cut down the external borrowing, because we are actually reeling under the weight of debt today. We have become a full-user country at all levels, at national level up to the individual level. So we also need to cut down on the level of borrowing. Now, once the jobs are there, once people are engaged in the productive sector of the economy, we will enhance our level of savings, yeah, and our level of investments as well. That enhances our revenue base as a country. So those are some of the thematic areas on the basis of which our campaign plan, so-called our bottom-up economic plan, was anchored.
Okay.
Yeah, those 4 thematic areas. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Owalo, some people they were asking about the issue of subsidies.
Yes.
We saw what happened when the government scrapped off the subsidy on fuel.
Yes.
Whereby they were saying, okay, maybe previously there was an alleged that maybe it was benefiting around 5 big companies.
Yes.
But again, it was also saving the hustlers in a way, because you see, fuel is a global product.
Yes.
Whereby it drives everything.
Yes.
Food will be expensive. Everything will be expensive because of
fuel.
Fuel, yeah.
Yes.
So, in terms of subsidy, what do you think? Is because the president talked about that you can't be able to subsidize on consumption, you know.
Yes.
Rather we focus on production.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the issue of subsidy? Because
You
some people
know-
are saying, now, you see now, right now we are, palm price is talking about 179 shillings per liter of
Yes.
petrol here in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in a perfect market situation, we are actually not supposed to have government intervention in the market by way of subsidy. But government comes in to subsidize or introduces subsidy in certain integral sectors of the economy because of market failure. Disparities in the what? Disparities in the market. A subsidy is a direct funding, cash injection that the government gives out or pays out to in a given sector of the economy to help in stabilization of the market what? Prices because of market failure. For example, the government can decide to subsidize the cost of some given inputs in the production process of fuel, for example. Now, what then happens is that if the government subsidizes fuel, as it has been doing in the past, it is supposed to translate into a reduction in the cost of fuel at the pump, so that that benefit accrues to the final consumer. But that has not been the case. We have had a situation where the government subsidizes fuel by giving that cash, injecting that cash for the benefit of the oil companies. But because of market factors, the price of fuel has not been going down. Yet the government is spending more money, on the subsidy. In fact, as we speak, so far the government has spent 144 billion shillings, direct payment to the oil marketing companies. And again, because of budgetary constraints, because resources are scarce, so there are several competing interests for the scarce resources that are available at our disposal as a country. The government fell back on those payments to the oil companies. As we speak, the government owes the oil companies about 66 billion shillings. So what happened is that the oil companies started hoarding the fuel products, in anticipation of capital gain. So we have had a situation where the amount of money the government is spending on subsidy is going up, 144 billion shillings already, The government is subsidizing fuel at about 20 shillings, 26 shillings per liter for the case of petrol, and I think another 20-something shillings for the case of diesel. But the price at the pump is still what? Is still high.
Still high.
Yeah. So this is the disproportionality in the market that we are dealing with, that we are spending more money on subsidy, but it is not translating into a reduction in the cost of fuel because there are extraneous variables in the global market.
Where was the money going?
The money was going to the oil companies, but you see the oil companies, the government cannot wake up one day and say you have to cut down the price of fuel. The price of fuel is regulated by the EPRA, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, based on the EPRA Act 2019. But that is also influenced. The price of oil itself is influenced by global factors because we import oil. Kenya, or for example, in the recent past 2021, we spent colossal sums of money to import oil from the Middle East. So there are those global prices, which are determined out there based on the forces of supply and demand out there. There are also logistical issues like transportation, which translate into determination, which influence the determination of the cost of oil. So we cannot just as a country wake up one day and say that this is going to be the cost of
the retail price.
The retail price, because there are extraneous variables in the global market. So what we are saying, therefore, is that there is no point of subsidizing fuel if it is not translating into a reduction in the cost of oil at the pump, petrol at the pump, but we would rather put that money into production. In the current budget, 2022-2023 budget, the government has allocated a colossal 100 billion shillings to go towards subsidy. Our health budget in the current financial year is about 60-something billion shillings. Food and nutrition has been allocated 40-something billion shillings, about 42 billion shillings. So if you put fuel, the budgetary provision for food, and oil, yeah, it comes to the equivalent of the amount of money that we want to put into what? Into the fuel subsidy for the benefit of the oil what?
Yeah.
The oil companies. Why then don't we put that money into the productive sector of the economy, which is agriculture, which within a very short period of time can translate into a reduction in the cost of what? In the cost of living. So these are the cost-benefit analysis which government needs to do and make a decision.
And make a decision.
Yeah. So we are saying that if we are to subsidize consumption, if consumption is to benefit in a sustainable manner, then let us subsidize production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue of production.
Yeah.
I think there was also an issue of subsidy on unga.
Yes.
And there were a lot of debate, push and pull.
It's the same argument.
In terms of like, oh, we subsidize unga, but there are no unga in the shelves.
Yes.
You know? So I think it's the major thing is.
I think the last 1 month alone, the government spent about 7 billion shillings
7
on
billion
that unga subsidy.
Yeah.
The unga was not available in the shelves. Where did the money go to? You see, we have got cartels. We have got cartels in the sectors.
Issue now.
Yeah, we have got cartels, yeah.
So maybe, Mr. Owalo, looking now back to bottom up in terms of when we break down now in terms of agriculture. We talk about there is, we've seen the fertilizer being flagged by Deputy President Honorable Rigathi Gachagua the other day.
Yes.
What are other things that need to be done under agriculture?
Seed.
Yes.
Yeah, seedlings.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to get fast maturing seedlings. We need to provide extension services to the farmer. Yeah. Those are some of the integral things that we need to do in the agricultural sector. We also need to improve on the infrastructure along the value chain, things to do with warehousing and so on and so forth, and then now go to the marketing side so that we also ensure that once the farmer produces, there's ready and available market for the produce of the farmer at competitive market rates. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that one will really bring a change.
Yes.
For the long term, because I think where we are right now, we were talking about ICU, some were talking about HDU in terms of economy.
Yes.
Some are saying, oh, it's completely dead.
Yes.
We are about the 93 or 97 million in the exchequer.
Yes.
You know, whereby I think, I don't know, you are an expert, Mr. Owalo, and looking back, maybe the last 10 years, is it the issue to do with policy? Because I think we are throwing a blanket, just say corruption, and then like, okay, that is the end of it. Is it about the policy whereby some things were not followed? I
don't really want us to use deficiency in policy as a scapegoat. The problem we have been having in this country is a leadership deficit. This country at all levels has always had the best policy frameworks, the best strategic plans, at line ministry level and even at the level of the implementing agencies.
Right? Yeah.
But the problem we have is implementation. All that we need to do is to strengthen our governance framework. And to strengthen this governance framework, you need leadership that is decisive. That is where the problem has been. Because the leadership that we have had in this country ends up going to bed with the cartels at the expense of the common consumer. That is where the problem is. And once we fix this leadership, strengthen our governance framework, we will be home and dry. Yeah. All we need to do is to implement the policies that are in place and the plans that we have at ministerial level and also at the level of the implementing agencies. That requires a leadership that is decisive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And looking back at devolution, you know, we're talking about almost 12 years now since we moved to the county governments.
Yes, devolved government,
devolved units.
Yeah.
How much has it done? As an expert from where you sit, do you think you've done enough? Do you think there's room to expand? Because you talk about the issue of implementations, of making life better, having a good economy. Where are we right now in terms of devolution?
We have not done well in devolution. Again, because of lack of foresight in leadership. First of all, we end up electing as governors individuals who don't understand the functional domain of a governor. You see, it is mind-boggling that we have got a lot of potential within our counties, but those potentials are not adequately exploited. Why? Because we talk of inadequate resources. In the thinking of our county governments, the financing has to come from the national government. So they come up with the so-called CIDPs, yeah, County Integrated Development Plans, with very good suggestions by way of development priorities. But the money that is available from the exchequer, yeah, based on the revenue sharing postulated by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, is a drop in the ocean compared to the financial outlay that we require at the level of the counties to be able to implement those development priorities. What then do our counties need to do? One, the counties must identify alternative sources of revenue, own revenue, as opposed to relying on the national exchequer. That money from the national exchequer is a drop in the ocean. It cannot sustain any meaningful development. In fact, a substantial proportion of it goes towards recurrent what? Recurrent expenditure. We need to identify our own revenue streams at the county level and find ways and means of exploiting them. The CIDPs, as a planning tool, is what the counties need to use to go to the market, to look for resources. As a county, you know what you want. How then do you get the resources? Not necessarily just from the national government. No. We need to go into the international market and mobilize resources, identify investors with whom we can partner, yeah? And then, as opposed to going to the national government to give us the so-called sovereign guarantee, we should then be engaging national government to reform the policy framework so that counties can get into direct public-private partnership with international investors. As we speak today, an investor will not come directly and partner with the county without getting a sovereign guarantee from the what? From the national government. This is where the problem is, and that is where we need to review the what? The policy through an appropriate legislative intervention. Let us have an appropriate legislative intervention that would enable the counties go into direct public-private partnership with international investors without necessarily looking for sovereign guarantee from the national government. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. And in terms of
maybe before we continue, let me also just give you another angle to it. Counties have been coming together to form the so-called regional economic blocks. Yeah. Why are they amalgamating their efforts through the regional economic blocks? So that they can enjoy economies of scale, pull together resources available at their disposal, and see how to use that as a comparative advantage in the market, in the marketplace. As we speak, we don't have an enabling policy framework on which the regional economic blocks is anchored. So that's another area that the national government definitely will look at, yeah, so that we have got an enabling policy framework that can enable the counties realize their full potential through the regional economic block so that they enjoy economies of scale. Yeah.
Maybe before we look again, we revisit the Big Four agenda in terms of we've seen the president talk about, like, we are going to implement that in this Kenya Kwanza government. Yeah. There have been an issue about the CBC.
Yes.
Talking about the CBC, the curriculum, and the state of jobs for the young people in this country.
Yeah.
What do you think as a policy expert in terms of CBC on your view and the job market? Because there's been a narrative that, you know, we produce a lot of, you know, scholars, but perhaps
the skills are not aligned to the needs of the market.
The needs of the market. What do you think?
You see, the problem with the CBC is the way it was introduced. It was a radical shift from the norm. Anytime you are introducing a change program, you need to bring on board the key stakeholders so that their views are integrated into that process.
So there were no consultation?
There wasn't adequate consultations. If you talk to, there wasn't adequate consultations. If you talk to sector specialists, in the education sector specialists, they'll tell you that there was the level of consultation was deficient. And the president has already said that we are going to have a task force Yeah, I think the process of constituting that task force is ongoing now. We will have a task force, not just to look at CBC alone, but to look at all emerging issues in the education sector that the government needs to respond to. We have got a deficiency of about 116,000 teachers. Yeah, those need to be looked at. We have got a lot of challenges within the universities. Most of our universities, public universities, are collapsing. All this needs to be what? To be looked at. So there's a chain, a vicious chain, circle of issues that need to be addressed in the education sector, and a task force we were constituted by experts, consisting of experts, is soon going to come into place to address those issues and give recommendations to government for purposes of implementation.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the part of creating jobs,
Yeah.
I know this is a big area whereby,
Yes.
You know,
On which our agenda is based.
Yes. The agenda, because everyone thinks like, okay, the government is here, you're going to sort everything. What is the plan? Because I understand you have the plan.
Yes.
And what is
how
the
do we
plan?
create jobs?
Yeah, how do we create jobs? Because I think that's another big area. Yeah.
One, to create jobs, you put money into agriculture. Yeah, make our agricultural sector productive. That agriculture is the backbone of the Kenyan economy. If you put money into agriculture, yeah, then you are going to create jobs along the value chain by way of manufacturing enterprises in the agricultural agricultural sector. Yes. The second intervention that we want to put in place, which is also one of our thematic areas in our bottom-up economic plan, is housing. We anticipate that or envisage that we are going to, we are targeting to produce to build 250,000 low-cost housing. This will create jobs for our millions of youth who are currently jobless by way of provision of what? Of labor, on one hand. But on the other hand, we are also going to create market for the Juakali what? The Juakali sector, so that the supplies into the housing industry, yeah, will come from our Juakali sector. Doors, windows, and so on and so forth will come from the Juakali sector. That again is a critical intervention that would give us about 1 million jobs created every year. So if we put money, and by the way, we are not introducing some cost into the budget line in the housing sector. The government is only putting in place an appropriate policy framework and asking the private sector to come in,
The key players.
Yeah, the key players, and do what? And construct low-cost housing. And then the government ensures that the policy framework provides available market for it at institutional level. We have got institutions there now buying the houses and offloading to their employees, for example, at low-cost housing, at low cost, so that we are even able to afford mortgage with a repayment rate of about 10 to 15,000 shillings per month. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about the low-cost housing, there was within the Big Four agenda.
Yes.
About
of the Jubilee government.
The Jubilee government.
Yes.
And I had the president saying we are going to make sure that that one is done.
Yes.
In terms of affordable housing. Where are we right
The
now?
plan was okay. The plan was okay. From what I hear,
the low cost.
The plan was in place, but the focus of government shifted to politics. Yeah, politics took center stage in the second term of the Jubilee government. So the Jubilee government, from what I'm told, because I was not part of it, lost focus on its Big Four agenda. Priorities shifted from housing. Priorities shifted from agriculture to the BBI project. So a lot of resources, which was actually supposed to go to some of those sectors, was diverted to the BBI project, which was stillborn from the beginning, if you ask me. Yeah.
Yeah, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eliud Owalo. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back on the second part of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.